Hey, Beyond the Gates, it's Radhika from Radhika Storyline, and we're going to talk about Beyond the Gates. But first, please hit subscribe if you're not already following us. So, today on Beyond the Gates, we got one of those episodes where almost every conversation felt like it was hiding a second conversation underneath it, and honestly, I loved that. Right away, Naomi's diagnosis is doing the one thing nobody probably expected it to do, which is pull Dani and Bill into the same emotional orbit long enough for them to act like a united front. And I have to say, for all their history and all the bitterness there, seeing them both vow to be there for Naomi did hit. It was soft, it was tense, and it also felt temporary, which in soap terms usually means enjoy it while you can. And then once Dani leaves to go see Anita, Vernon plants himself at Bill's table, which already tells you he came with a purpose. He basically says Bill's recent hospitalizations are not just bad luck, they're a sign, and you know what, he's probably right. Bill has been brushing things off, posturing, acting like he can out-stubborn his own body, and that kind of pride usually ends with somebody flat on the floor or waking up to a very grim doctor's speech. What made the scene interesting, though, is Vernon putting the past animosity aside and telling Bill he'll be there if Bill needs somebody to talk to. That was unexpectedly gracious, which usually means the universe is about to reward that grace with immediate chaos. Because of course they get interrupted by Ariana Wood, and Vernon's new consulting job on her campaign gets folded into the scene almost casually. So now we've got politics, health issues, old grudges, and new alliances all hovering in the same space. Vernon exits, Jacob walks in, and then Bill nearly collapses. That timing was not subtle, and it wasn't supposed to be. The show wanted us to see that Bill is a man trying to stay in control while his body is basically staging a mutiny. Now over at Orphe Jeans, Naomi and Andre have a talk, and he's trying to smooth over the rough waters between Naomi and his wife. Which, okay, good luck with that, because the women around the storyline are not exactly in a forgiving mood. At the same time, Dani is with Anita admitting she is not happy that her mother is basically encouraging Naomi to have a surgery, if that's what she wants. And honestly, Dani's frustration made sense to me. It's one thing to support Naomi's choice, but it's another thing when Dani feels like everybody else has made peace with something she's still emotionally fighting. That is very human, very messy, and very on brand for a family that loves hard and argues harder. So Dani and Anita eventually reach a kind of understanding, which was nice, but of course peace never lasts for long in Fairmont Crest. Dani goes home and finds a bottle of champagne sent as a belated wedding present. No sender. No explanation. No real comfort. Just vibes and bad ones. And because Dani is Dani, she decides that even though it's early, they should open it. I mean, of course she does. If a mystery gift shows up in Soapland, that is not a put it on the shelf and investigate later moment. That is a let's pop it open right now and see if the plot thickens moment. But Andre's reaction is where everything goes off the rails for me, in the best way. He hears where the vintage comes from, a place where he spent time in the past, and suddenly he is visibly concerned. Not mildly uncomfortable, not vaguely nostalgic. Concerned. And once Dani steps away to take Vanessa's call, Andre whips out his phone and makes what looks like a very urgent call, only the number has been disconnected. Then he studies the gift card like it might confess, if he stares hard enough. That whole sequence screamed loose end, buried history, and potential panic. Honestly, if you sent me a mystery bottle and my husband reacted like that, I would not drink a single drop. I wouldn't even water a plant with it. And then we had Haley, who really spent this episode proving that some people are determined to become the wrong person's problem. She meets up with Randy because she needs to vent about Dani, which already tells you the conversation is going to be bitter, petty, and completely lacking in self-awareness. And sure enough, she's also complaining that Bill is not dying faster, which is such an ugly thing to say that it almost circles back around to cartoon villainy. Like, girl, inside thoughts. Deep inside. Buried 6 feet under, honestly. After Haley leaves, Mona comes in and asks Randy whether Joey has him wrapped up in something that isn't sitting right with his soul. And I liked that scene because Mona was operating from a place of moral clarity without getting preachy. Randy tries to push her away, saying she shouldn't waste her grace on him because he's not worth saving, and Mona comes right back with the idea that everybody deserves a chance at salvation. That was one of those quietly strong moments, and it mattered. Because then Haley returns and immediately refers to Mona as that thirsty hoe, and Randy is finally riled enough to draw a line. He makes it clear he's not going to sit there and let her trash talk Mona, and honestly, good. Haley needed that check. She says he needs to stop talking to Mona, or it will end badly, which is the kind of threat people make when they think they still control the room and do not realize the room is already turning on them. Now, another thread that got very interesting very fast was Smitty asking Jacob to set up an interview with Leah before she gets transferred to a more secure facility. We don't see the whole interview, but we absolutely feel the impact of it when Smitty meets Naomi afterward at Orphe Jeans and starts comparing notes. What Leah told Smitty about Lynette is very different from what Haley told Naomi, and that is where the alarm bells really started ringing. Because when two stories about the same person or event diverge that sharply, somebody is lying, somebody is protecting somebody, or somebody is missing a huge piece of the truth. And then June, who has clearly been listening, jumps in to say the whole attack on Haley was shady because her friend Wesley, who got arrested for the crime, would never hurt a woman. That was huge. Because now the show is not just giving us conflicting accounts, it's giving us a witness character who flat out questions the official version of events. And Naomi's response was brutal and kind of hilarious, saying Haley is a two-faced bitch talking out of the side of her mouth, and that's not a crime. I mean, tell us how you really feel. But underneath the snark is something serious. Naomi and Smitty are now both suspicious, and once characters start comparing stories in a soap, the lies usually start cracking. And then, just to remind us that the older generation can still steal a scene, Laura arrives at the mansion to help Anita with all kinds of tasks, and Anita thanks her with a gorgeous diamond necklace. That wasn't just a pretty gift scene. It had emotional weight because Anita says if Laura had not pushed her to make and keep that doctor appointment, the cancer would have spread, and Anita likely would be dead. So in the middle of all this suspicion, collapse, and possible poison panic, the episode also gave us gratitude and tenderness. Beyond the Gates does that really well, honestly. It lets you sit in warmth for about 12 seconds before somebody else says something berserk. And Jacob, still worried about Bill, gets brushed off when Bill tells him to focus on his wife instead. Which is classic Bill. Deflect, minimize, act tough, keep moving. But that man is not okay. Not physically, and maybe not emotionally either. So let's talk theories, because this episode handed us a whole tray of suspicious behavior and basically begged us to speculate. First up, I suspect that mystery champagne is tied directly to Andre's past, and not in some cute, harmless, oh wow, I remember this vineyard kind of way. His reaction was way too sharp, way too immediate, and way too urgent for that. My guess is the bottle came from someone who knows Andre, knows exactly what that label or vintage would mean to him, and wants to send a message without saying a word. It's not a stretch to think this could be connected to a person from his past who is about to make another appearance, especially since the tease for next episode literally says someone is coming back and not everyone will be happy about it. Honestly, Andre looked like a man recognizing the opening move in a game he hoped was over. Next, I'm betting the champagne itself may not even be the point. And that's what makes it scarier. Everybody's first instinct is going to be, is it poisoned? Is it dangerous? Is this some murder plot? And sure, maybe. But I could also see the bottle being more symbolic than lethal. A marker. A warning. A remember me? Wrapped in fancy packaging. If that's the case, the real danger is what it triggers in Andre, what secrets it drags back up, and how Dani gets caught in the blast radius. Because if Dani realizes Andre knows more than he's admitting, that marriage or alliance or whatever fragile piece exists there is going to get crushed fast. Another possibility is that the returning figure is somebody tied to Haley's web of lies rather than Andre's history. And honestly, that would be delicious. Because the Smitty Naomi thread is now exposing cracks in the story around Lynette and the attack on Haley. I wonder if the person about to resurface is someone who can blow Haley's version of events apart, maybe not with perfect clarity, but enough to send everybody into a fresh round of accusations. Haley has been moving like somebody who thinks she's untouchable, and soap characters who talk that recklessly usually do not stay comfortable for long. She's playing a very dangerous game with too many witnesses, Too many conflicting narratives and not nearly enough self-control. And here's another one. I could see Randy becoming a much bigger swing character than people expect. Mona got through to him, at least a little, and his refusal to let Haley trash Mona tells me his loyalty is already wobbling. That matters. Because if Joey really does have Randy tangled up in something ugly, Randy may be the weak link who either confesses, flips, or makes a panicked mistake. I'm not saying he turns sane overnight because heck, this is a soap, redemption always comes with detours, but I do think the show is positioning him as somebody whose conscience is waking up at the worst possible time. And then there's Bill. Honestly, I think Bill's collapse is more than just a health scare designed to get sympathy. I suspect it's also a plot device to force truth into the open. Bill keeps pushing people away, brushing off concern, and acting like sheer force of will can keep him upright. It can't. My guess is his condition is about to become unavoidable, and once that happens, the people around him are going to start making decisions he can't control. Dani may soften. Vernon may step in more. Jacob may start watching more closely. And if Bill is carrying secrets of his own, physical weakness has a way of making those harder to manage. Another theory I keep circling back to is that Naomi's diagnosis is going to become the emotional center that exposes everybody else's character. We already saw Dani and Bill come together because of it, and Dani and Anita clash over it. I wonder if Naomi's choice about surgery becomes the thing that reveals who is genuinely supportive and who is trying to steer her for their own emotional comfort. Sometimes on soaps the medical story is the story, and sometimes it's the pressure cooker for all the surrounding relationships. I think this is the second kind. And those are often the better ones because everybody starts showing their real face. And last but not least, I'm betting this someone is about to make another appearance. Tease is not going to be a quiet entrance. No, I think it's going to land like a shocker and immediately connect to at least one of the mysteries already on the board, probably Andre's panic, possibly Haley's shaky narrative, maybe even both if the show is really feeling ambitious. Beyond the Gates loves a layered reveal, and right now there are too many loose ends dangling for that return to be random. Somebody is coming back with history attached, and somebody else is going to go completely unglued. Now, as a secondary thread, I do want to say I'm very curious about Anita and Laura moving forward, because that necklace scene was lovely, but on soaps, even gratitude can become story fuel. Laura now matters even more emotionally inside that mansion, and whenever somebody becomes indispensable in a family orbit like that, it usually opens the door to deeper loyalties, new tensions, or future heartbreak. I like that scene a lot, which probably means I should be nervous. So my verdict is this. The mystery champagne is connected to Andre's past, Haley is closer than ever to getting exposed, and Bill is headed for a major breaking point whether he admits it or not. This episode was basically the calm before a very stylish, very messy storm. We'll see. Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Rodica Storyline is on all the major podcast platforms including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.